What if I told you your personality could kill you? I'm not talking about your preferences, about being introverted or extroverted. I'm talking about personalities type A and type B. A cardiologist by the name of Dr. Friedman was having the furniture in his waiting room reupholstered. The upholsterer pointed out to him how the material on the couches and chairs had worn out in an odd way. This observation prompted Friedman to wonder if his patients, which were those with heart diseases, were in some way different from the patients of other doctors. Through surveys of executives and physicians, Friedman and Rosenman discovered a common thread. They discovered that chronic stress, perhaps from excessive drive, pressure to meet deadlines, competitive situations, and economic frustration, are more likely to develop heart disease, or perhaps maybe more likely to develop heart disease. They decided to put this hypothesis to the test by creating two different distinct groups in which they could categorize different people. Group A was categorized by, first, an intense drive to achieve personal goals. Second, they always had an eagerness to compete. Third, they had a persistent desire for recognition and advancement. Fourth, continuous involvement in multiple activities with deadlines. Fifth, a tendency to rush to finish activities. And sixth, extraordinary mental and physical alertness. Group B was categorized as having a relative absence of drive, an absence of ambition and time urgency, and desire to compete or involve in deadlines. Then Friedman and Rosenman contacted managers and supervisors of big businesses and corporations. They got these managers to select associates that they thought would best fit in Group A and into Group B. In these groups, they selected 83 men of close to average ages. Friedman and Rosenman then interviewed each man, had them take a diary of their food and drink, and took blood samples. These interviews showed Friedman and Rosenman that these men did in fact fit into these groups A and B. Group A showed that participants were found to be chronically harassed by commitments, ambitions, and drives. Also, they were clearly eager to compete in all their activities, both professional and recreational. In addition, they also admitted to a strong desire to win. Group B had a lack of a sense of time urgency. They were satisfied with their position in life and avoided pursuing multiple goals and competitive situations. They were much less concerned about advancements and typically spent more time with their families and in uncompetitive recreational activities. Most of the information within the diaries was found to be statistically insignificant. However, they did find that Group A smoked more and had more of a history of parents who had coronary heart disease, which is very important to remember for later. The blood samples found that cholesterol levels were clearly and significantly higher for Group A than Group B, and that incidence of arcus senilis were 3 times greater for Group A. But that's not all that they found. The biggest finding they made was a striking difference in the incidence of clinical CHD, which is coronary heart disease, found in the two groups. In Group A, 23 of the participants, which is 28% of that group, exhibited clear evidence of CHD, compared with only 3 men, which is 4% in Group B. All 23 of the CHD cases in Group A came from those men with the fully developed Type A pattern. For Group B, all 3 of the cases were from those participants exhibiting an incomplete Type B pattern. This conclusion implied that the Type A behavior pattern was a major cause of CHD and related blood abnormalities. However, Group A reported higher incidence of CHD in their parents and smoked more than those in Group B, and today we know that smoking is very closely related to CHD. Friedman and Rosenman responded to both of those potential criticisms. First, they found that an equal number of light smokers, which is 10 or less cigarettes per day, within Group A had CHD, as did heavy smokers, which is 10 or more per day. Second, Group B had 46 men who smoked heavily, but only 2 of which exhibited CHD. This led Friedman and Rosenman to believe that smoking was a characteristic of group A, but not a leading cause to CHD that was found. However, it is important to remember that the study was done 40 years ago, and now we do know that CHD is directly related to the habit of smoking. As for the possibility of parental history creating the differences, the data also revealed that of the 30 group A men having a parental history, only 8, which is 27%, had heart disease, and of 53 men without a parental history, 15, which is 28%, had heart disease. None of the 23 group B men with a positive parental history exhibited clinical heart disease. Again, more recent research that controlled carefully for this factor has demonstrated a family link in CHD. However, it is not clear whether it is a tendency towards heart disease or toward a certain behavior pattern that is inherited. Friedman and Rosenman's research was crucial for psychological history because of 3 basic reasons. First, it was one of the earliest systematic studies to establish clearly that specific behavior patterns characteristic of some individuals can contribute in dramatic ways to serious illness. Second, the study began a new line of scientific inquiry into the relationship between behavior and CHD that has produced scores of research articles. The third reason is that it has played an important role in the creation and growth of health psychology, a relatively new branch of the behavioral sciences. Now, how can we apply this, what we've just learned from this study, to us today? Researchers Terry and Baldwin did a study in 2000 between the relationship of type A behavior and driving. This study found a clear association with type A personality and an increase in driving-related incidents, this being more traffic accidents, more tickets, greater impatience on the road, more displays of road rage, and overall riskier driving behaviors. It's safe to say we can apply this to our lives today by maybe not letting our type A friends drive us around anymore.
Muriel?
Yes, Mavis?
Do you know that you've just gone through a red light and over a roundabout and you haven't even slowed down?
Am I driving?
Muriel, you are driving.
What's really scary is that your insurance premiums are based on her driving.
Oh dear.
It's studies like this that make me ask, if I'm a type A person, am I doomed to heart disease? Or can I change? Well, yes and no. If I'm a type A person, I can't change to be type B. However, there are things that I can do to have a healthier lifestyle than a typical type A person might have. And what I mean by that is that, of course, type A people are allowed to have that drive, that competitive spirit, that go-get-em attitude, but there needs to be a balance of going to work, coming home, maybe doing a hobby, spending time with family, buying a puppy. I think the most important thing that we can take away from this study is that balance is very important for a healthy lifestyle. And so, is your personality killing you? Thanks so much for joining us on the Ellie Pravat Show. I'll catch you next time.